Final hour overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Big ball game tonight down in Miami. Dolphins, Bills, the pick is in. Timo and Wilson is on the Dolphins. Land 2.5 tonight. Big game to start week 2 of the season. Can't wait for it. Battle of the AFC East. We'll catch up with Steve Tasker later in the hour on the Bills side of things, the Dolphins side of things. Saw Tom Brady just posted his power rankings going into week 2. So he's doing that for Fox as well, just breaking down the 5 teams that he likes. You know,
who's he got at 1?
I honestly only got through a portion of the list. He had Houston at 5, and then we were coming up. I was just looking at it on Instagram. I'm like, yeah, that's interesting. I would guess he's got Kansas City at 1. Like, that's probably the biggest troll job ever if you don't have Kansas City at 1. Right?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. Like, the Niners looked really good. You can definitely point to the Niners. Detroit looked pretty good. But I don't see how anyone could possibly push Kansas City out of the top spot. Everything else is up for grabs. It's kind of like McDavid in the NHL. You know, we're all putting together. Oh, there's Brady's rankings. Yeah, Chiefs 1, Niners 2, Lions 3, Cowboys 4. Houston 5 is interesting. He did see Dallas up close and personal.
Come on with the Cowboys.
Well, he was there, right? He was in Cleveland watching it. That probably enticed him a little bit because he saw it up close and personal.
Do you think he's throwing him a little bone where he's like, I'm doing 3 of their games, start off. Like, I got to deal with these people.
Yeah.
Could be a bone throwing.
He does have them the next 2 weeks as well, which is a crazy way to start your career.
Yes.
Like 3 straight games on the
Biggest
Cowboys.
platform.
But it should be advantageous as a color guy.
Absolutely. But it also speaks to, you know, the power of the Cowboys brand. That Fox is like Cowboys, Cowboys, Cowboys. You know, the NFL's almost hooking them up too. Be like, make sure Brady gets rocking with our biggest brand. Because nothing can top it. Like when Dallas is playing, there's nothing can top it in terms of the numbers and the ratings and everything that comes with it. But, yeah, we've got to have our rankings in for the top 50 soon, for TSN's top 50. And do you think anyone will have the stones to put McDavid at 2 or 3?
You should be walked out of the building if you do.
Wow.
You think that's a fireable offense?
But as of right now, like, I'm sorry, you walked out of the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I don't see it. Now you're projecting, but I don't see why he wouldn't be number 1.
No,
personally.
it should be everyone gets their list like a ballot, and he's already at the top. Like that.
He's already penciled in at 1.
Yeah.
Like it just starts.
You think
at 2.
HR at Bell Media would walk someone out the building if they had McKinnon at 1?
As of right now, it would be. As of right now, it would be. Can you hand over your pass and your stuff? You're not allowed to go back to your desk. We'll have it delivered to you, and thank you for being a part of this company, and you're gone.
Yeah.
All the best in the future. Great catching up with you. It's been a blast, but you're going to have to leave.
They just package you right there. Like that's it. You're done.
All the best.
You want to be silly? Out you go. That's what it is. You want to be stupid? Out you go.
We're going to send a press release out a little bit later saying how much we've loved your contributions to the company, but you will no longer be a part of it.
Yeah.
Take care.
Exactly.
And all the best. Okay. That seems extreme, but I get what you're saying. I mean, I guess technically McKinnon had a better year last year, didn't he? If he won the MVP, if he won the Hart.
Yeah, I guess like if somebody had McKinnon, I guess he is from last year.
It would be.
You're suspended for a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think.
Well, let me ask you this, Hayes. If you looked at somebody's list and you were like just kind of, they were handing it over to Lanesy and you grabbed their list and you saw McKinnon, like what would you say to that person?
I would challenge it. I would challenge it vehemently because I do believe McDavid is the clear-cut number 1, undisputed. Yeah. That said, again, in the NFL, they do a players poll every year, NFL Network, and Mahomes was rated number 4 this year. Like the players voted.
Who's
3.
won?
I can't even
voted
remember
on
now.
what though? Like just who's the best player?
Yes, best player in the NFL, and it was. I'm pretty sure Mahomes was at 4, which to me is just jealousy or stupidity.
It is.
I mean,
it's jealousy. They're like,
yeah, it's got to be, and I think the same thing with McDavid. You can make McKinnon's unbelievable. You can make a case for Kucherov having a better year. I think Matthews. Possibly. I think Makar possibly. There's a handful of guys you can look at and say, I think that guy could have a better year. But the likelihood is very slim. And I think it should be McDavid starts at 1, and then you see who's going to come in at 2. I would guess McKinnon probably comes in at 2, but that's up for debate, for sure. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Would you ever possibly think of putting anyone other than Connor McDavid at the top of your list for the TSN Top 50, projecting on this upcoming season, Pierre?
No. Anyone who does is on crack.
Okay.
I mean, let's be real.
Fireable offense.
Yeah.
Are we really even discussing that at this point? No. What's interesting, we actually had this conversation recently, a few colleagues of mine from The Athletic, and, two gets interesting. I mean, I think I'm still McKinnon, but, boy, Makar, it's funny how the D, you sort of, we're so forward conscious, I think, in the media. And, man, it goes back, isn't it amazing that Nick Lidstrom won 7 Norris trophies but never a Hart? Honestly.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like the last defenseman to win the Hart was Chris Pronger in 2000. Good pal Chris Pronger, and deservedly so. It was a monster year, but somehow Lidstrom, with all those Norris trophies, never won the MVP. Anyway, it's a long way of answering your question, but my point is, are we really giving Makar as much credit as he should for the player that he is?
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. I think the likelihood of someone – there's two guys that I would look at as the only guys I can think of over the next 5 or 6 years that could knock him out. And Makar would be one, and probably Bedard is the next just because he's so much younger. His counterparts like McKinnon, Matthews, Kucherov, Draisaitl, they're all the same age. If he starts slowing down, they're going to slow down. So, Sid owned the number one spot forever. I guess he jockeyed back and forth with Ovi for a bit. But for the most part, he owned it for a long time. And now McDavid's owned it for 5 or 6 years, and I think he will own it for another at least 2 or 3. So, if it's going to be 2 or 3 more years, I think you're looking at Makar, who will be, 27, 28, or Bedard, it'll be 22, 23. It's going to have to be that next wave that passes.
Yeah, that's fair. And obviously, we're having discussing 4 or 5 names here. Let's not forget the guy who just signed for $14 million a year. I mean,
yeah. Draisaitl's up there for sure.
But
he's been a playoff monster.
Yeah, I mean, what about a guy who breaks through? I was bullish on him last year, but he ended up getting injured. But Jack Hughes, maybe he has a break. He's that talented, but again,
I don't see him passing McDavid ever though.
No, I don't. Yeah, you're right. But he's young. He's younger, right?
Yes, he is. Yep.
It's interesting. I think there's got to be somebody. Maybe it's a goalie, but there's no young goalies out there that are dominating.
I mean, it's interesting. I was going to text you this, Noodles, and I forgot. But I did an interview with Doug Armstrong recently, and I asked him about the state of Canada's goaltending for, the 26 Olympics and the 4 Nations coming up, and. It's not a big list. I mean, you're looking at Binnington, Stuart Skinner, Aiden Hill, and Samuel Montembeault right now. I mean, it's thin, and they might still win this fight back given the rest of that roster. But one of the comments that he made, and it really grabbed my attention, Noodles, and I want your opinion on. I'm paraphrasing, but essentially Armstrong's comment was that he believes more than ever now in the modern game that the gap has shrunk between the floor and the ceiling of all the goalies in the world. That the days of where you had Patrick Roy sitting there up top, Dominic Hasek, Ed Belfour, Marty Brodeur, maybe as late as even Carey Price, is Vasilevsky that much further ahead than the next sprinkling of guys? And I don't even know if everyone still has Vasilevsky at 1. And so it really made me think when he said that in terms of, is the goalie position, does it have that much parity, more parity than we've ever seen?
It's a great point, and he's 100% right. But I would still say that there's 5 to 7 or 8 guys that are the separator. Everybody else is in that middle group. Where we used to see it was Brodeur, Waugh, the top guys, Hasek, and then there were, the bottom tier, which I believe I snuck into a few times. And then there was, guys who were kind of in that middle. There's no bottom tier. Everybody is lumped in the middle, but I still think there's an 8-pack of guys who are above that middle group. The Shesterkin, Sorkin. I think, Russia's got 4 or 5 of those guys alone.
Right.
Vasilevsky. Then you throw in the Hellebuck, Demko, Ottinger, and Stuart Skinner's pushing into there. There is some guys, but at the end of the day, you're right. The difference between the top guy and we'll call it the bottom of the middle isn't massive anymore. I will say it's more about durability and them being able to, play 60-plus games opposed to 50. That's the difference for me.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goaltending position, that's going to be the topic of discussion. We've been talking about it for years, and we're years away from even getting there. But if it gets to a point, fairly or unfairly, Canada, U.S. gold medal, and the starter gets pulled in the first period, it's just going to be a disaster. It gives up 3 goals on 5 shots. People are going to go crazy.
It's completely uncharted territory for best on best. I mean, you can go way back even to the 87 and 84 Canada Cups. I mean, you knew Grant Fuhrer would be in goal, and then Belfour, the 91 Canada Cup, and so on, and keep going. The last best on best event was the 2016 World Cup here in Toronto. And obviously Carey Price was in goal. This is going to be so fascinating. I mean, the Four Nations is coming. I look forward to covering it. Is it Skinner or Binnington in net that night? And where does it go from there? We have never entered a best-on-best event that I can recall covering a tournament where Canada has that question mark. It's pretty unbelievable, really.
Pierre, your buddy Jonathan Marchesso was on a podcast the other day, and he kind of came clean with some details about his contract negotiation, where he basically said he called Kelly and he, tried to air out the laundry, and he talked about the negotiation, what happened. I don't remember that ever happening where guys were starting to come out with some details like that. Do you think, that's kind of just the way the podcast world, people coming out with facts is the new way of the world? And do you think a GM would ever kind of change the code of conduct and behavior to say, God, I got to keep it straight here because I don't want to be on no stupid podcast?
Wow. That's a fascinating question, O'Dog. I mean, number one, I do find that athletes, not just in hockey, but in other sports too, tend to let their guard down a bit on podcasts, right? Mm-hmm. It feels like they forget everyone's listening. And you tend to get bigger headlines on there. So I think that's part of it. But I will also say that, having covered that story closely when it was all happening, I'll never forget, by the way, when I realized, wait a minute, I kept thinking it'd be Marchesso or Stamkos going to Nashville. And when I realized they were both going, that was one of those crazy moments. But I think, O-Dog, that points to how emotional that divorce was, honestly. I really think, listen, guys leave, it's a business. But Jonathan Marchesso established himself in Vegas. He was discarded from both Florida teams, ends up in Vegas.
I thought he would stay, Pierre. I thought that guy was going to stay. The way he performed in the playoffs, basically all the time, regular season and playoffs.
He had a huge year last year, and real heart and soul guy in that room. But, I mean, you have to give the Golden Knights credit. I mean, they're right now they've made some unpopular decisions since they've come into this league, and all they do is win. So it's kind of hard to sit here and say, oh, what are they doing again? Well, hasn't backfired on them yet, right? I mean, they really handled their roster in a way in which they just want to win, and they don't care whose feelings are going to hurt. That's the reality of it. More so probably than any team in the league, although I might throw Tampa in there after the divorce with Stamkos. But and I think there's some lessons in there for other teams that, you do fall in love with players who are fan favorites and are, the fabric of your team, and you love that, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons we love sports. But it feels like, including in football and other sports that we follow, that sometimes the cutthroat administrations are the ones that get ahead. I mean, you hate to admit it, but it is kind of true.
Absolutely. And listen, it sounds as if Vegas was willing to give him a shorter-term deal and he was looking for. Nashville steps up. Stamkos, again, the two teams that have done probably the most damage in the league over the last handful of years would be Tampa and Vegas.
Right, that's my point.
They're the ones that said thanks, but no thanks. And look at how quickly they moved. Like Vegas kind of made their moves in advance with bringing in Hurdle and bringing in Hannafin, and now they've got them on the team full time next year. And down in Tampa, look what they acquired.
And listen, they got 4 years younger, obviously, by bringing in Gensel to replace Stamkos. But
right.
and maybe this is the softy in me, but I don't know. I think they took it a tad too far here with Stamkos. I mean, I mean, when you thought of the Tampa Bay Lightning for the last 12 years, you thought of him. And, the reaction I know from his teammates when all this went down, it was really emotional. And listen, I'll be proven wrong, I'm sure. The Lightning have had the golden touch for many years, but I think that one come back and haunt them potentially. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure other teams in the division are certainly feeling that way. Are pulling for that to be the case. As for the Leafs, not a ton of news going on with them yet. Max Pacioretty's here, and there's a former captain of the Montreal Canadiens. What do you think that'll look like when Pacioretty rolls through the Bell Center in a Maple Leaf uniform?
Yeah, I think it's really neat, and I think it's probably obvious to everyone. He's not really on the PTO. I mean, there's a little salary cap dance happening here between now and opening night, but Pacioretty has a job on this team. I mean, they pretty much, I think, have agreed on what the numbers will look like when the time is right. But it's smart. Keep your flexibility at its max until you got to figure all this out. But he's going to be elite. He has a job on this team. My understanding is he kind of flew in at some point, maybe a month ago or sometime in August, and worked out for the Leafs coaches to show where he was physically, and it kind of went under the radar. But I think the Leafs feel good about this flyer, right? I mean, it's not going to cost a lot of money. And he's got a lot to prove. I mean, he hasn't been healthy, in the last couple of years. So I like this bet big time. And it sounds like he's not going to move his family full time here. They live in Michigan now, but I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth, which is understandable for a 1 year bet. But I like that signing a lot, again, given how little money they're going to spend on him.
Do you like the signing of Nick Robertson and, obviously just getting it done so there is some competition on that left side? And, do you think Tree and any other teams, especially we'll focus on the Canadian teams, are done with PTOs, maybe bringing guys in?
Yeah, and it's interesting. When I was on last week for my first appearance of the season, I mean, his trade demand was still on the table, and obviously over the course of the weekend, that finally softened. And I think what that required was his agent Pat Brisson, sort of laying it out for his client, saying, "Listen, they've tried to trade you all summer, man, and I've tried to help them find you a team, and it's just not out there," which it must be pretty hard to swallow, right, as a young player when you hear that. But that doesn't mean someone may not want him at some point. So
you think he could still be traded, Pierre?
Well, that's sort of what I'm getting to, is that I'm not saying I don't think Jeff would be right now, because, again, there's just no market. But I think that if the player, takes this on with a chip on his shoulder and has a very good year, then, yeah, let's revisit this. This would be hard, and it's not the first time it's happened, but pretty hard when you spend 2 months and the team and the agent's trying to find you a team and it doesn't happen. That's got to be really hard to swallow.
Big time, man. Big time, yet hopefully inspiring for him, I mean, that's what you got to hope for.
Exactly. I mean, who knows? And he may feel completely different. I mean, it's an interesting time in the game right now, right? Like, is there a player we spent more time on and going into the draft than the trade demand of Martin Necas, and then he never even gets traded? So I feel that, and listen, it's fun to have things to talk about, but I feel like these were handled a bit differently or more behind closed doors about 15 years ago. And, and I don't know if it's social media or just, again, maybe, and this is a good thing, players feel more empowered, but it feels like the slightest frustration leads to a lot of these things with players right now. it's always interesting to see how front offices react. And in this case, I think the Leafs did try to move him, but they're not going to give the guy away. So I kind of like the end result right now for Toronto. They got a player who's pretty motivated.
Absolutely. All right, Pierre, we're getting there, man. Rookies have arrived. Camps are opening up right around the corner. It's going to be a fun September the rest of the way. We'll do it again next week.
Right on. Well, think of me this weekend, boys. I'm going to my annual Cowboys game in Dallas. Saints and Cowboys. Let's go.
Yes, say hi to Tom Brady. He'll be down there.
Well, I saw his last game, the playoff game they lost to the Cowboys 2 years ago.
That's right. That was painful. He was terrible. Anyway, thanks, Pierre. Enjoy yourself.
See ya, boys.
Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander, in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com.
Any reason why you guys were going Jimmy Joyce?
Why were we going? Oh, because of the fantastic, instead of great question. I think it's pretty specific. It's got to be great question. Fantastic just doesn't fit within the guidelines of what we're looking for here.
Forget about these two because they're doing this for their own benefit. If this is a proper competition, Doogie, please get on the mic. Are you accepting that and also documenting it as one of the things required for this competition?
So, boys, we've been compiling this. It was 2-1-1 last week in favor of the O-Dog. I will give this to the O-Dog. It's 3-1-1 now.
Kissing.
That's gutless, Doogie.
That counts. That counts as my
gutless commissioner.
You are a man of integrity, Doogie, and you're respected.
I don't know. I was waiting for the Al's brother drop here because that would be the thumbs down. Sorry, Jingles. Hey, Jingles.
Hey, there's my good pal Jingles. What's up, pal?
I think
Great
Josh
to see
Goldberg commented on it.
He did. He wrote to us.
I think it was kind of a crazy vibe, and not sure what to do.
It's all good, man. Yeah, there's Josh Goldberg saying he just heard the whole OverDrive jingle stuff and said he did consider hanging up the phone, but was totally struck by lightning. He couldn't believe what he was listening to.
What's going on, Jingles?
Hey, Jingles, what's up, pal?
But Jingles actually responded and quote tweeted on top of him.
Right.
And said, he heard it too. Oh, my God.
Yeah, Josh Inglis was doing that.
So Jingles is aware that this is going down.
Yes, that he was misrepresented by Josh Goldberg, where it was supposed to be Josh Inglis, and Inglis I'm sure has a word or two with Al's brother.
Oh,
but all right,
we got to get Goldberg on tomorrow to get a breakdown of what he was going through.
We should actually fully break that tape down.
Yeah, just because it's so funny, like just where his headspace was at when this character is like, "Hey, Jingles, what's happening? You must have been."
I think you got the wrong Josh.
I got the wrong Josh.
I think so.
Al's brother is so perplexed by it, but they're having a full conversation like they're not on TV.
Al's
not
brother
on
at
radio.
one particular point, I understand people's just tendencies, and when he says, "Well, who's this?" and he has a little ha, he is fully crapping his pants.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, fully.
Because you know what's terrifying. We got to play this, okay? Let's play it, and then we got to do this again because we got to reset. We got a new audience here. This was Al's brother filling in for Matt Cause on game day. This was at around 3 o'clock. He thought he was about to speak to Josh Inglis, who's a NFL capper and has got a lot of leans on the game tonight. Instead, it was a different Josh.
It's my good friend Josh Ingles, betting analyst at covers.com. What's going on, Jingles?
I think you got the wrong Josh.
I got the wrong Josh?
I think so.
Who are we
that
speaking?
laugh there.
This is Josh Goldberg.
Okay, so here's where he actually is so lucky.
Yeah.
If that's some athlete that plays in the CFL, you're dead. You're just, it's over because you're at least when it's Goldberg, you're like, oh, okay, well, Jays are off. What do you think about him? You can jump quick and be like, okay, I could do a Blue Jay conversation. If that's some guy named Josh that's a lacrosse player that retired 2 years ago, and for some reason he thinks, I guess a place in Toronto wants to interview me about something. Do you know how screwed you are? Like you have to on live radio say, I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are. I can't do this. There's been a mistake and we have to let you go.
What's going on, Jingles?
That would be extreme.
Yeah, like if he said, "Hey, it's Josh Lamont. I played for the Toronto Rock in the '80s. What's up?" You will absolutely. You just go throw your pants in the
Yes,
dumpster.
incinerator immediately. You are a
Josh Lamont, Toronto Rock, 1980 to 1987.
Yeah,
I think you would throw your headset right off and run home.
You'd have to. You'd have to immediately pretend there was a connection issue and gas it and then move on and admit to the audience that you just completely screwed that up and don't ever call Josh Lamont.
I think that's up
again.
to a JP type to gas the guy and just say, take a break for a sec. We got to come back and we'll have Josh Gold or Jingles, whoever. Like
we'll have Jingles on.
Josh Goldberg could have just hung up too.
He said he had it in his mind. He said he had it in his mind, but he said he felt like he got hit by a bolt of lightning, and he's like, "What's going on here?"
If you hang up, then right away we're thinking, "Oh, it's bad connection." That is, we'll get him back on the phone, and then when you call back, go, "Hey, tell this guy I am not
Jingles." His responsibility, Noodles, but I think it's fully capable of the guest saying, "This ain't me. I got to get the hell out of this."
And again, because Josh Goldberg is a guy who has been on the station, is a known, he's a really smart guy, really good baseball guy, covers the Jays really well, and has an audience that can come with that. He was willing to kind of play along and accept it. You get someone, like, we're so lucky that Jake Delhomme won. That's Jake Delhomme. That guy played in the Super Bowl. Do you know how easily he could have been like, "You guys are a joke. You're such losers.
Never call me back.
Never call me ever again. How dare you?" And I'm calling my publicist, and we are putting you on blast. This will be
Let's hear ours. This was our version of it when we thought we were calling Jake Plummer, and this happened.
Here he is back on Overdrive, longtime NFLer. We haven't had him on in a couple of years. He's always great to have on. Here is Jake Plummer. What's happening, Jake?
It's Delhomme, not Plummer, if you want to reset it.
That's great.
Oh, my God.
I can't listen to that anymore. It's like it's
that's
so
scar
cringe.
tissue. That's scar tissue right there.
It is. It's they did it, Naylor, and it's Delhomme. I don't ever want to hear them ever again. It's the most cringy, just disgusting performance.
If you clip your comment after he goes, it's Delhomme and not Plummer, and you go, well, there you have it. Or like you want to chew or scratch the ground.
I've never seen your face like that. I've never seen your face like that.
Yeah, it was like I was at Mel Gibson levels of explosion internally. Like I was doing the deep breathe. I was Bill O'Reilly with "We'll Do It Live."
Yeah,
like it was a snort, like it was the deep breathing, and we're like, this is actually outrageous that this has happened because we're just so embarrassed for Delhomme. Like he played it so well. It's Delhomme. He even did the awkward chuckle. Like this is amateur hour. All right, Steve Tasker, I think, is going to join us. I watch it happen to us here. We're going to get duped here. Somehow this won't be Tasker, but hopefully it is. Host of One Bills Live, and obviously Bills All-Pro back in the 90s. Great player himself. He'll tee up the game tonight. Dolphins-Bills. We'll get to Steve next. All right, our best bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. But we got a big ball game to start week 2. I love it. You can't ask for anything better than this, the way the NFL started with Chiefs, Ravens, Packers, Eagles, Lions, Rams. The Monday Nighter was supposed to be a great game. The Niners didn't allow it to be.
They've gone around the horn nicely, haven't they? Like they've hit the right spots where you're like, that's the NFL.
And this is what we're talking about tonight. Buffalo, Miami, you can't beat it. The Dolphins a slight favorite. The Bills have owned this division for a long time, and a man that knows them as well as anyone would be former Bill and the host of One Bills Live. Here's Steve Tasker back on Overdrive. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. I think we all know, it's a statement game really for both teams, but from Buffalo's standpoint, them getting off to a 2-0 start, considering the way things started last year, how significant do you think a win would be tonight?
Well, it'd be huge. I mean, they've got the toughest schedule in the league, or one of the toughest schedules. It's a first-place schedule. They're used to playing a first-place schedule, for the last 4 years, but when you're playing the NFC West, you got the Niners and Rams on your schedule. You got to kind of buckle up. Plus the AFC North, is a bear of a schedule to play in conference. So the schedule's not ever going to get easy for the Bills. So you need to make hay while you can. And certainly this is not going to be an easy game for Buffalo, no matter what the last 11 or 12 games have been like. You can expect a single-score game when this one comes down to the end.
Yeah, and I think Buffalo's 11-1 in the last 12 against Miami, and yet there seems to be more focus on Miami and the trickery down there and Mike McDaniel and how he's going to game plan and all the offensive weapons. Why do you think Buffalo stacks up so well against Miami when it seems like everyone, the general public is all over Miami tonight?
Yeah, Buffalo's. I mean, Josh Allen is a tough guy to beat. They just last week and week 1 of 2024, they set an NFL record of 41 straight regular season games, never being beaten by more than one possession. It's an NFL record. They're just hard to beat. Josh Allen kind of is that safety net for them. I think this year their offense is probably going to be more productive than it has been, even with Steph Diggs on the team. I really think their offense is going to take a step forward this year around Josh Allen, not because Steph's gone, but because of the guys they have there, and their offensive line's gotten younger, more athletic, and they've got also have some experience up there as well. So the offense is going to carry the Bills for the first month or so of the season while the defense finds its legs. But like going into Miami tonight, that's the big question mark for the Bills, is how well will their defense play against the speed of Miami.
Steve, you've seen Josh grow from the young stud with the cannon arm, with all the talent, to a guy that sometimes would mishandle the ball and would make some poor decisions. Do you think, as far as himself being that superstar, like he's in the sweet spot of his career, like where he needs to be to like get to the finish line and take his team where they need to go?
Yeah, I think he's been there for a while. I mean, if you look back at what he has done over the course of his playoff career, well, if you just look at the numbers, he's the best playoff quarterback in the league, bar none. That includes Mahomes. If you look at his numbers, the guy throws nothing but touchdowns. He barely turns the ball over in the playoffs. So when he gets there, what he really needs is just some help from his defense, from his running game, from the other guys on the team. He has played outstanding in the postseason, and that has been really the thing that has set him apart. In the regular season, he'll play fast and loose with the football, absolutely no question about it. But I mean, you look at even the way he played last year. He had more touchdowns and the exact same number of interceptions as the MVP and the comeback player of the year combined. So I don't know when people are going to notice how good he is, but he's really good. And I think, losing Steph Diggs this last off season, they needed Steph when they got him. When they traded for Steph 4 years ago, he really helped Josh take another step as a young quarterback. And I don't want to say now that Josh has outgrown Steph Diggs, but certainly Josh is a different player than he was 4 years ago. I think the offense is going to reflect that as we get through this season.
With Steve Tasker ahead of the game tonight, Dolphins, Bills on TSN. Von Miller, because of the injury, is not a guy that I don't even know if he holds a huge Buffalo profile, like outside of the city of Buffalo and outside of the fan base. But he had a sack in week 1, a couple of solo tackles. What did you see out of Miller in week 1 that makes you believe, moving forward, he's back, maybe not in his prime, like same levels as prime, which that's a lock Hall of Famer, but he can be a true impact guy and the guy that Brandon Beane signed?
Yeah, I think he's going to be exactly what the Bills want him to be. They'd like him to be more of a pass rush specialist. Certainly he's got that left in his gas tank. The sack he got last week was a power move. He caught the tackle a little too perpendicular to the line of scrimmage. He drove his inside shoulder and put him right back in Kyler Murray's lap and tripped Kyler Murray up for the sack. It was a bold power move, and it was perfect. And he looked really good in that game. And to hear him talk, he feels 100% better than he did at any point last year when he didn't put any statistics on the board. So early on, you would expect you're going to get their best. All these guys all the way around the league. Opening day, everybody feels fantastic. Let's turn it loose. It's as you get the bumps and bruises, and here we are on a short week for the Bills. It's a quick bounce back. So it'll be interesting to watch Vaughn tonight as a guy in his mid-30s playing a physical position, in the NFL, see if he can bounce back at his age and have another good game.
In terms of, the offensive weaponry around Allen speaks for himself. You spent a lot of time here with us, Steve, talking about how great he's been and how great he'll continue to be. And you mentioned Stephon Diggs no longer there anymore. When you look on the outside, I guess you can include the tight ends here, Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakir, Keon Coleman. Like, who do you think, when all is said and done, we get to the end of the season, we're going to look back on it and say that was the number one option for Josh Allen?
Yeah, I think it might end up being Dalton Kincaid. If you look back at the all-22 film of the game against the Arizona Cardinals, there were times when Dalton Kincaid had 3 Cardinals around him, and one time when he actually had 4 guys hovering around him at the end of the pass route. They were really focused on stopping him, which is why Josh ended up throwing the ball and getting receptions to 9 different receivers. The most catches anybody had was 4, and that was Keon Coleman, who had 4 catches on 5 targets, or maybe it was 5 catches on 6 targets. No, I think it was 4 catches on 5 targets, and that was the most targets anybody got. They only had 5 incompletions on the day or so, and everybody out there can really catch. Khalil Shakir is going to be a really important weapon for this club. He's very good after the catch. Kincaid, as I said, will probably at the end of the year end up leading the team in targets. And James Cook, behind this offensive line, may have a year that duplicates or is even better than the one he had last year. He had the quietest 1,500-yard from scrimmage year last year of anybody in the league. He was 4th in the league in rushing. That may improve this year. So they've got plenty of weapons on the outside, and that's nothing to say that they haven't started to use Curtis Samuel yet. And Keon Coleman, who is just, they're just sprinkling the ball around to all these guys. So it's hard to see anybody after 1 week meriting special attention from the Miami defense. But I think that speaks to where Josh is throwing it. There's no alpha dog out there. He's throwing to a lot of guys, and it seems like he trusts all of them.
Back in your playing days, going down to Miami in September, crazy hot. Now, they're lucky it's a night game tonight. It'll cool down a little bit. But how did you prepare, and how much of an impact did it have on the way you played and the way you got through the game?
For us, it was different then because as hot as it was for our team, it was just as hot for the Dolphins. These days, a Sunday 1 o'clock game, the Dolphins bench is in the shade, and that changes things dramatically. Now, a night game, if it's 83 degrees, and whatever the humidity makes the heat index, is going to be the same for both teams. But on a sunny day, it's definitely different for one team than the other. The team that sits on the sunny side of the field, it's a vastly different environment. Tonight, it'll be the same for both. But people used to wonder why we could go down there in the dead of winter and play well in the weather in Miami. I got to tell you, the later in the year it got, the better it felt to go down and play in Miami. We'd get off the charter flight, and it was like a dry sponge soaking up water, and it just soaked that good weather in. After being up in Buffalo, it just felt so good to get off that plane and not have to put on a parka to get to the bus. So I think it's a refreshing trip for Bills players. Certainly at this time of year, it's hot, and it's going to be hot. But as long as it's hot for both teams, I think everybody can live with it.
Yep, and it certainly will be tonight. Week 2 kicking off. Bills-Dolphins, can't wait for it. He is Steve Tasker, former Bills All-Pro and host of One Bills Live. Great catching up with you, Steve. Enjoy the game tonight.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, it is fun landing in Florida when it's crazy weather up here. Even for a work trip, I'm sure.
It's just so much better. You get off the plane. Like, that's the one thing I always found when you got to – when it's cold up here and then you're going somewhere warm, you're dressed warm. Mm-hmm. I'm not shorts guy at the airport. If you always see that, right? It's middle of winter and there's a guy with shorts on because he's flying to, Cancun, right? So he decides to wear shorts to the airport, freezing his ass off. But that's
when I played in Carolina, Noodles. I don't know what you did in Florida. Like when we made the northern trips, it was like, am I really going to bring some big jacket for like bus to hotel, cab to restaurant. I don't need it.
Yeah.
I just screw it. I'm not doing it, man.
Guys wore their dress coats. That's what it is. And you it depends on, you're playing the Leafs and you're staying at that Westin. That's a little bit of a walk outside. That there's no tunnel to get there. You got to find a way. But nowadays it would be even you just pay an Uber to get over there, or you take the team bus, I guess, to go right underneath. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I know it's a good point. Like if you play in Florida or whatever, and you're going up to Western Canada in January, do you even bring a jacket? I mean, I think it'd be wise to do it, but at the same time, you just say, screw it, man. I'm hotel to the rink. That's it. Like
That's
I'm not
it.
doing anything else. That's the way it's going to go. All
Yeah.
right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up again on the game tonight. Jays are off. They're back in action tomorrow. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. Today's Best Bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Dolphins -2.5. Team Owen Wilson's on it. We're on it as well for our Best Bets. I like that play. Dolphins to cover tonight and win outright. Josh Allen, alternate rushing yards, 25-plus yards. Khalil Shakir, alternate receiving yards, 40-plus yards. That same game parlay paying plus 354. Today's Best Bets powered by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of the OverDrive same game parlay. Please play responsibly. 19-plus, physically located in Ontario. You guys see the Maple Leafs social media stuff? They've taken the O out of forever on their Instagram.
What's going
Twitter
on there?
and
Is
down
that
in
like
Scotia. I don't know.
Are
but
they
they've obviously
changing like the slogan where it's like Leafs forever is now Leafs now, or I don't know.
they're doing something, and you know what? I give them credit because it's worked. Because people are like, what does this mean? What's going on? Why would they do that? And maybe someone from MLSC leaked it, like, hey, we did. Because this could go on for months without people even noticing. But someone noticed, and it went viral. And now the O, maybe it has something to do with UO. I don't know. Maybe even
Legends Row for O.
Maybe a Legends Row for the O Dog. That could be next.
Hayes said 5 years, like 10 years ago, Hayes said it would have to stretch to Barry for me to get
That's
in.
right. That was a little bit
harsh.
aggressive. Yeah,
that was very
aggressive.
harsh.
Yeah,
that was uncalled for. I shouldn't have said that. I rescind that comment years later. I want that restricted from the record. But yeah, I don't know. They obviously got something going on. I don't know what that could possibly be for opening night, or something to do with a mascot or something like that. I'm not sure, but they got some people buzzing. People are wanting. I hope it's not a letdown now, right?
No,
like,
it's
got to be something like kind of good for fans, or people will be not bent out of shape. But if you're promoting something, it better land well.
What if it was just a glitch in their computer and like it's like fixed tomorrow? Like.
Yeah. Sorry about
now,
that.
but now, you say it was a glitch, but now it's got such a buzz. They're like, hey, we got to plan something. Like we got to put something together here that's nifty.
Something's got to give here. Something's got to change. Exactly. Like if you didn't have that planned, that would be that I would say it would be a nightmare, but it would definitely get people buzzing. Like, what the hell are we going to do here?
Yeah.
Anyway, the Leafs are on. They're up to something. Something's going on. Like, it would be, if there was a C that you were taking out, and it's like, all right, Matthews is the captain now or something like that, I could understand. But
right.
I don't know.
It's one of those things where it kind of makes you think I'm never going to lose sleep over it, but it's like, what is that?
Right. I am actually genuinely curious now, like what they're up to with the O.
It's more annoying now because you're like, all right, what are we doing here?
Right.
So
Like,
home
what are you guys
opener
doing?
is October is like, so the O. So there's lots of O's missing.
All right.
I
Well,
don't
maybe
know.
tomorrow we'll shoot it out to the masses and see if people can come up with something. Some of the comments on the Instagram page, Twitter were so good. Like, Leaf fans are going to get in on it. Non-Leaf fans are going to get in on it, wondering what it could possibly
everybody's
mean.
going to have something to say.
Everyone's going to have something to say.
I could think of off the top of my head. People will be like 0 cups in the last,
exactly.
zero this, or, that's what it's going to be.
Yes.
Instead of, maybe it's something clever. And,
they're taking the O out because the offense disappears in the playoffs, and they're just getting out in front of it.
Yeah,
there were a
there'll be
lot of
bunch
those comments.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of comments like that. All right. There you go. Week 2 starting tonight in the NFL. Jays back in action, and the Cardinals in town tomorrow. We're looking forward to that. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web, we appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Al's brother, you're welcome on Team Owen Wilson. Don't ever forget that.
Ooh.
4 p.m.
He'll call you Jangles.
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.